Leadership transition. China's top officials are convening for the National People's Congress, where they may reveal a new economic plan and alternative paths. Successful negotiations between India and Bangladesh could see the start of a new trading route. Hello and welcome to this Monday edition of Asia Business Report. I'm Sharonjit Lail in Singapore. We start with China, where its top legislature, the National People's Congress, begins in its annual session today for 10 days, and the economy will be high on the agenda. Premier Wen Jiabao is expected to announce that the nation is targeting economic expansion of about 7.5% as Europe's debt crisis affects demand for products made in China. One announcement already made is that China will be increasing its military spending by more than 11% to more than $100 billion this year. And for more on what to expect, we're joined now by Dr. Qian Liu of the Economist Intelligence Unit in Beijing. Good morning, Dr. Liu. We're expecting, do you think, any major surprises in terms of economic policies at this year's National People's Congress?
Not really. Policy-wise, one shouldn't really expect to hear any surprises coming out of this meeting. I mean, it's been called a rubber stamp for a reason. And yet still, it's very important to watch this key political event, as there will be a lot of discussions, especially regarding public policies.
But we did see stocks rising last week in anticipation of some sort of stimulus plan by the government to help boost domestic demand. Do you think that's likely?
There might be one, and even if that's the case, it's going to be a very modest one, because inflation keeps remain one of the top priorities, if not the very top priority of the government.
We also know it's the last year in office for the current government. Do you think anything major will likely be announced at all this year, or will there be more focus on this transition to power later this year?
The political change of guard is the key thing to watch this year, but it's going to come at the autumn this year rather than the NPC starting today.
Right. Now, do you think, we've seen the one thing they have announced ahead of the opening of this MPC is the fact that they're going to be spending a lot more on military spending, an 11.2% rise in military spending indeed. Do you think that budget could detract from spending elsewhere in the economy?
The Chinese government is in a relatively good position to spend. I mean, the revenue the government increased last year was very good, especially when you compare that figure with US and the EU. So the government is in a good position to spend more money where it finds necessary.
Now, earlier you mentioned inflation is still a big worry for the Chinese government. We are getting inflation data due out at the end of this week alongside industrial production, retail sales and some of the key data. Are there signs that perhaps China's economy is starting to slow, and do you see any moves to address that at this year's MPC?
The inflation will be one of the key topics to be discussed this year, absolutely. But what we're expecting to see is that this year the inflation will come down compared to last year. It's probably going to be somewhere around 3.6%. So it's going to be a lot better compared to last year, but still it's going to be continue to be the case of a large concern, especially when it comes to livelihood.
All right, we'll leave it there. Dr. Qian Liu there from the Economist Intelligence Unit.